Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my channel? Thank you so much. In the 10th year of dating Lucas, I accidentally answered his phone. Our little one had a litter of kittens. It was a gentle female voice with the caller ID noted as Little Calico Cat. "He's in the shower, call back later," I said coldly before hanging up. That night, Lucas frantically picked up the clothes scattered on the floor, hastily putting them on and rushing out. I smashed our home, erasing all traces of myself. I boarded a flight abroad. 3 years later, Lucas intercepted me on a vacation island. He stared intensely at Ava, who bore a slight resemblance to him with red eyes, and asked mine. Lucas was full of energy while I was so worn out I could barely keep my eyes open. My phone kept ringing beside me, and in my daze I answered it. Lucas, our little one had a litter of kittens. Though it was a gentle and lovely voice, my head felt like it was exploding, and I was wide awake. I glanced at the screen. The caller ID read Little Calico Cat. Lucas, the person on the other end, called. I took a deep breath and replied calmly, "He's in the shower, call back later." There was a brief pause before the caller hung up. When Lucas came out of the bathroom, he was only wrapped in a towel around his lower body. Water droplets still on his skin slid down his muscular lines and soaked into the towel. There were several fresh scratch marks on him, my handiwork. "Why don't you sleep a bit longer?" He stared at the red marks on my collarbone, and his gaze darkened further as he leaned in closer. I handed him my phone. He frowned in displeasure, snatched the phone from my hand, and tossed it aside, then pinned my hands down, his breath brushing lightly against me. "Little Calico Cat," I said. The person buried in my neck stopped moving. "She called you and said your little one had a litter." Lucas suddenly snapped to attention, frantically picking up the clothes scattered by the bed, hastily putting them on and rushing out. I was left alone in our jointly decorated home, watching him run toward another girl. The girl was his blind date. They had started contacting each other 3 months ago. It took them less than a month from meeting to confirming their relationship, and they even adopted a stray cat together. She shared food, music, and even a simple cloud with him. He responded to everything, taking pictures of dinners and sending them to her after cropping out my traces. Meanwhile, our conversations revolved around work, just work. Only in the late-night tenderness would he whisper "wife" in my ear, a term meant to spice things up, but I held it dear to my heart for a whole decade. I smiled. I pulled out Lucas's cigarette case from the drawer. I hadn't smoked in a while and it made me cough. Tears streamed down my face as I coughed. Colleague Nora messaged me. "Amelia, did you know Lucas is dating someone?" Lucas and I had always been professional in public and often argued due to differing opinions. No one could imagine Lucas teasing me while I sat on his lap. What can you do about the person he chose? Pamper her? What an inhumane scene that would be. And today, Lucas added that girl to the company group chat. "Hello everyone, I'm Lucas's little assistant, Grace. Please take care of me." Her group nickname was Lucas's Little Calico Cat. Many things don't need to be explicitly stated to be understood. I didn't know how Lucas explained the call I had answered. I just knew that Grace had added everyone in the company. Going through them one by one, Nora sent me an eye roll emoji. Work is already annoying, and now I'm treated as a fake love rival. Before long, Grace posted on her social media with a picture of a cup of green tea, captioned, "Don't randomly touch other people's phones. It's uncultured, Lucas." He liked the post. I expressionlessly picked up a baseball bat nearby and smashed the house in a frenzy. Amidst the wreckage, I finally smiled with satisfaction when the cleaning team arrived. I sat on the only undamaged sofa, dazed. It wasn't that it was precious. I was just tired, really very tired. "Amelia, are you okay?" Seeing me in such disarray, someone asked me. Meanwhile, Lucas's chat window still showed messages from 2 hours ago. I gently shook my head, revealing a sincere smile. "Take all the feminine products from here." Lucas and I were college classmates. He grew up in a privileged environment. His family had arranged his path, and he only needed to follow along. But he was stubborn. After cutting ties with his family, he started his own business. I was his first partner. He invested and I put in the work. I once asked him why he chose me. There were plenty of people in college who were more capable than me. He casually twirled a pen. looking at me thoughtfully with genuine warmth in his smile. He said, "I like you." I was taken aback. That unyielding spirit, once my ambitious vitality, was what he admired. Later, this ambition became something he resented. Grace is different from me. She is very innocent. The person he is going to marry needs just this kind of flower, someone without much ambition who revolves around him. He is very clear about what he wants and puts it into practice. Lucas and I are similar types of people, resisting and struggling like dormant predators. Because of this, we have an unspoken understanding, navigating the business world in a give-and-take manner. That night, after making our first pot of gold, we both drank too much. Lying in bed, surrounded by scattered red bills, Lucas turned his head to look at me. His eyes filled with emotions I didn't understand. "Amelia, you're amazing." I smiled and replied, "You're not so bad either." After a period of intense work, Lucas, the young master, finally fell ill and developed a high fever. I busied myself taking care of him, but he rolled over, covering me with his body. I still remember the redness at the corners of his eyes and how his body felt like a perfectly cooked shrimp, flushed with fever. "I like you." This time there was no pause and no additional remarks. He no longer restrained his emotions, and the faint scent of the tobacco mixed with mint lingered at the tip of my nose. The soft sobs were swallowed as he embraced me tightly. It was so hot that it made one's heart boil, sinking us both into the depths. I moved back to my own place. Over the years, I had raised myself to be delicate, so I had developed the habit of being picky about beds and ended up with a sleepless night. When I returned to the company, I ran into Lucas just in time. I nodded politely but distantly. Lucas frowned slightly. Grace jogged over, standing between us. "Hello," and Lucas's fiancée. I nodded and replied, "Hello." Upon hearing my voice, her expression showed a hint of fracture. I didn't engage in small talk and went straight to the elevator. "Amelia, right?" Grace chased after me with Lucas following closely behind. "I often hear Lucas speak highly of you. Your work skills are outstanding, but it's better for women not to appear too often and mingle with men. It's not good. Shopping with girlfriends and doing beauty treatments is much more relaxing and comfortable. Let the men handle work, right, Lucas?" Lucas ruffled her hair, displaying extreme tenderness. Am I allowed to say otherwise? I didn't react to Grace's provocation. She probably recognized my voice and was anxious to flaunt her affection in front of me, declaring her claim over Lucas at the company. "Please call me President Amelia. If you don't know how, just let HR arrange training for you, with meals and accommodation included." I ignored the reactions behind me and flicked at the spot Grace had touched. However, my response angered Lucas. After dismissing Grace, he walked straight into my office. I frowned in dissatisfaction. Lucas knocking was basic courtesy. I emphasized the last 4 words. I returned every word Grace had said to him. He curved his lips and bent down, trapping me between his arms on the sofa. "Last night, you were the one who opened the door." His gaze swept over my skirt, laden with insinuation. Without hesitation, I slapped him across the face. His fair skin instantly bore a bright red imprint of my hand. Lucas rubbed his cheek, smiled and sat across from me. "I've already had the villa in the west of the city transferred to your name, and the land you liked before is almost through the approval process." Lucas half lifted his eyelids, his expression indifferent. Letting part amicably, he always knew how to strike at my sore points. The knife I offered him now plunged deep into my own body. At that moment, he was high and mighty, reminiscent of my so-called stepfather saying one thing while using money to buy out love. The fresh excitement of the lover's game was romanticized into something called love. When Grace arrived with a lunchbox, she caught me splashing water at Lucas. She screamed as she rushed in and slapped me. I had never been one to accept losses. The only loss I might have suffered was at Lucas's hands. I raised my hand, which was caught by Lucas. He stood in front of Grace, his tone warm yet angry. "Elia, this is not a place for you to throw a tantrum." I raised my other hand and slapped him hard across the face. Seeing the symmetrical imprint on Lucas's face instantly lifted my spirits. "Without Lucas, would you as a woman have reached your current position?" Grace stepped forward to defend Lucas. "You're fired." "On what grounds?" Grace raised her head, trying to appear imposing. simply on the grounds that I hold 30% of the shares, and that you barged into my office without permission and assaulted a company executive. Grace panicked, her eyes darting. Seeing Lucas remain silent, she continued to provoke me with arrogance. Lucas is the largest shareholder, and I'm Lucas's fiancée. What are you? If anyone should be rolled out, it's you. A crowd had gathered at the office door. Lucas said nothing, tacitly supporting her actions. This dispute no longer needed to continue. Fine, let's break up. I'll sell you my shares at market price, Lucas. I've been more than reasonable. Lucas, who had been silent, showed a hint of vulnerability when I took out the agreement he probably didn't expect. I had already drafted the agreement and was ready to leave. Grace wore a smug smile, clearly emboldened by her favored status. Who called the police? I covered my face as I walked forward, almost stumbling along the way. Officer, I've been assaulted. I feel dizzy and nauseous. After being examined at the hospital, I was diagnosed with a mild concussion. If I refused to settle, Grace would at least be detained for a few days. Lucas had a meaningful smile, looking as if he saw right through the act. Finally, Grace panicked, nervously tugging at Lucas's shirt. Lucas, I don't want to stay here overnight. I'm scared. Lucas gently comforted her, assuring her that he would take care of everything. With money being the issue, I wasn't one to lack understanding of the situation. After leaving the police station, Lucas pulled me into a dark corner. For money, you're really willing to lose all your dignity? I hooked his tie and tugged hard. He had to lower his head to meet my gaze. If you're going to step on my face to cheer on a newcomer, you should have thought about the consequences. Lucas didn't get angry. Instead, he smiled and raised his hand to support my lower back, bringing us closer together. You should rein in that temper. What man can stand you? I pushed him away in disgust and walked toward the parking lot. Lucas followed behind me, his voice casual. You know how my mom is. She hasn't been well these past 2 years, and Grace is just what she wants. I ignored him and opened the car door, but Lucas raised his hand to block me. Amelia, I can give you everything but marriage. I slammed the car door shut and walked away. In the rearview mirror, he stood in the light with his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. The streetlight cast a long shadow behind him. In the hospital bathroom, I spun around and gagged, feeling sick at the thought of Lucas and Grace. I returned home and collapsed into bed. When I woke up, the next day, I received a call from my mom. Amelia, you haven't come home for dinner in a long time. I checked the date and agreed to come. The person who opened the door was a stranger. Amelia, this is your uncle, Uncle Alexander. My mom introduced me. I sighed. My mom had a new boyfriend. Unlike the elegant and noble men in the past, this Uncle Alexander seemed like a down-to-earth person. At the dinner table, my mom eagerly served me food. Amelia, Uncle Alexander has a son who just graduated. Why don't you let him help out at your company? Although I was prepared, a sense of loneliness still flashed through my heart. I've quit my job. Why did you quit? Did you upset Lucas? My mom put down her chopsticks in surprise, thinking for a moment before suggesting. Why don't you buy some fruit and go apologize? Lucas doesn't seem like the type to hold a grudge. Crash. I slammed my chopsticks on the floor, making a loud noise. My mom choked up, leaning on Uncle Alexander's shoulder to cry. This child has always been stubborn. Whenever things don't go her way, she throws a tantrum and breaks things. If her father hadn't abandoned us, would I have to raise her alone and endure all the scorn? Is it easy for me? Uncle Alexander embraced my mom with sympathy. He was there to comfort her so she wouldn't have to face it alone. Yes, you're the only one who's right in the world. You're the most wronged. I scoffed, no longer caring about the lovebirds behind me, and turned to leave. Since I understood things, my childhood had been pieced together by isolation and bullying. I was merely my mom's bargaining chip to trap my biological father. Countless entanglements and reconciliations angered the rightful woman in his family. My mom could only wander from one city to another with me. No one welcomed us. They always wanted to take advantage of us. Like a wild dog, I drove those people away, fighting for my own rights. To them, I became a calculating, fatherless wild child. A family needs a man. We, as mother and daughter, will be bullied. My mom had a gentle nature. She pinned her hopes on men, searching again and again for new uncles with ulterior motives. That year I was 12. When I got home, I ran into a drunken man pinning my mom down on the floor and hitting her. The person gasping for breath on the ground was my only family in this world. I used every ounce of strength I had to fight a grown man. The out-of-control man pulled out a knife. I surprisingly breathed a sigh of relief, feeling that everything could finally end. But my mom, resolutely holding on to me, wore white clothes that slowly stained red. I thought, in this life we are destined to torment each other. You've given so much to the company. Are you really willing? Nora was someone I had trained, and I regretted leaving her. I propped my chin up and took a small sip of sake, willing after 10 years of love and hate entanglements. I had once fantasized about the future. When faced with a choice, there are no winners in this game. Spilled water cannot be retrieved. Leaving in time to cut losses is the best of the worst options. Seeing that I had no intention of turning back, Nora began to complain to me to appease Grace. Lucas had given her a meaningless executive position at the company, and Grace was paranoid, questioning every unmarried woman in the company, setting up ridiculous evaluations, and even demanding that women couldn't wear makeup or skirts to work. Clients were also affected, resulting in the loss of several contracts. This was something I hadn't anticipated. The typically steady Lucas would allow such unreasonable actions. Maybe the Lucas I knew was never the real him, or perhaps his favoritism toward Grace was an exception. But none of this mattered to me anymore. On the day I left the capital, it drizzled lightly. My mom was busy nurturing her relationship with her new son, hastily hanging up the phone after a few words of advice. Just before boarding the plane, Ethan called me. He was Lucas's childhood friend, and we had met a few times, so we were somewhat familiar. I didn't know how he found out that I was going abroad. Amelia, you don't need to hide abroad. I've organized a gathering, and Lucas will be there too. Let's clear the air. We can still be friends in the private room. Ethan gripped his phone, his face somewhat grim. On the other end of the line, Amelia had hung up abruptly. When he called back, there was only a mechanical voice. For a moment, the atmosphere in the private room dropped to freezing point. Lucas's eyes were now dim to the extreme, suppressing his anger. This call was at his behest. He thought that if he softened his approach, the other party would follow suit. Deep down, he asked himself whether he hadn't treated her well enough. He first noticed Amelia because of her beautiful appearance. Later, he was drawn to her tenacity. He remembered Amelia standing on the award stage, questioning the principal about the fairness of scholarships, a small figure standing against the rules of the world. He admitted that Amelia was excellent. However, the capital was not lacking in talent. He had provided her with resources, connections, and brought her to her current position, even publicly acknowledging their relationship in front of friends. What more could she possibly want? Lucas, if you can't let go, then go after her. Ethan, who had just lost his wife, sincerely advised. Lucas irritably lit a cigarette and scoffed. Just a fling. She really thinks of herself as a delicacy. Lucas appeared calm on the surface, but his recent unusual behavior confirmed his bluster. For example, he deliberately indulged Grace's mischief, letting someone deliver news to Amelia. He often inquired about Amelia's situation, lingering outside her home several times before leaving. Ethan had advised him several times to see his true feelings. Lucas didn't care. Why should Amelia act tough with him? She was merely relying on his concern for her. He could give Amelia everything, and he could also take it all back now that his family relationship IPS had improved. It would only take a word from him. There were plenty of people eager to do things for him. What was it like for someone good at scheming to lose everything? He was waiting for that day, the day when Amelia was left with no way out and had to bow her head to him. At that time, for the sake of their 10 years of friendship, he would reluctantly accept her. After hanging up, my world was unusually quiet. My past 2 years had been spent rushing about, not daring to pause for a moment. It felt as if the world would abandon me the moment I stopped. Amelia, what are you chasing after? I asked myself. My heart felt empty with no answers. They say at the end of the world, for those who have seen the aurora, all wishes come true. After landing in Northern Europe, I found a guest house to stay in. Lucas and I had been here on a business trip before. Back then we had hurried home because it was snowing. There were many others here for the same purpose as me, and coincidentally we all stayed in the same guest house. They were friends, relatives, or couples. We formed an impromptu sightseeing group without even planning it. This small town had no tall buildings, only endless snow-capped mountains and fjords. The sunset cast a glow on the white peaks, and a plane took off, bathed in the afterglow, stirring flocks of seagulls that circled in the sky. As night fell, clouds piled up and only a few stars were visible. But there's always a way when faced with difficulties, and someone suggested chasing the light. We rented a car, hired a local aurora hunter, and began our naive chase for the light. The car drove through the hazy night until a glimmer appeared on the horizon. "It's the aurora!" someone exclaimed joyfully. The light was like a reflection of the sky, piercing through the mountains and striking the soul. "Why aren't you making a wish?" someone asked me. I was at a loss for words. Perhaps I once had many desires, for example, that my mom would care more about me, or that there would be many more years with Lucas ahead. But at this moment I found myself unable to utter a single word. "I hope my mom gets better," a boy next to me prayed earnestly. I mimicked the boy, putting my hands together and silently wishing. Then I hoped for good health and that my wishes would come true. Travelers by the bonfire held hot cocoa and shared their stories. Some wished for a lifetime together for love. Some prayed for their loved ones to be free from disasters, holding on to their last hopes. I had never felt so peacefully immersed in this moment. In the past, my mind was only filled with weighing pros and cons, risk analysis of an event, confirming the data on returns. Getting emotionally involved was always a luxury for me because once I fell into the abyss, no one would pull me up. They might even step on me a few more times. Lucas's presence allowed me a few moments of leisure and suffocating times to think about the emotional realm I did not touch. I repeatedly told him my flaws, my family, my struggles, hoping to scare him away, that I wasn't worth his investment, but he steadfastly approached me again and again, affirming everything about me. Then in the end he shattered everything, breaking it into pieces. He stabbed me with one knife after another, driving them into my heart, bloodied and exhilaratingly refreshing. The heavy snow wrapped around me, and the tears in my eyes froze into frost. I opened my arms wide, immersing myself in the dance with the snow, responding to this fantasy of comfort. "It's nothing, Amelia." Dark clouds loomed overhead, and people sighed in disappointment. "What bad luck. It's snowing. Let's go back." On the way back, the accident came suddenly. The car rolled over several times, and everything outside was a white blur. There had been an avalanche. Voices filled with fear, blame, and self-pity echoed in my ears. I had fantasized countless times about what it would be like for my family to go to an amusement park. I could wear a pretty bow, ride on my dad's shoulders, put aside all my prickles, and like a real child point to my favorite stuffed toy and pout, "Mom, I want that." But in a moment of life and death, I suddenly realized that the bonds between people are always temporary, whether it's family, friendship, or love. Just like now, the original lament in the car turned into mutual encouragement. "We'll all survive," someone shouted, and everyone began to desperately claw at the windows. Before this, we didn't know each other well, but through this shared journey, we encouraged one another. After today, the mountains and rivers would separate us, becoming fleeting passersby in each other's lives. After being rescued, I lay weakly on the ground, drawing a small sun in the soft snow, a mark that belonged solely to Amelia. With the passage of time, my traces would be erased, but I had truly been here. One must love oneself first. When deeply mired in mud, one can only save oneself. I thought my own journey was just beginning. At Lucas's wife's birthday party, Grace wore a deep blue dress, standing next to Lucas's wife. The attendees were either rich or noble, and Lucas stood at the edge of the crowd, lost in thought as he gazed at the night, as if the lively atmosphere had nothing to do with him. People passed by, raising their glasses to congratulate him. "Congratulations, little Lucas, on finding a beautiful bride." Yes, this day was also a wonderful day for him and Grace's engagement. People thought Lucas was so happy that he forgot himself, downing one drink after another. Drunken Lucas embraced Grace yet called out my name. This was the live video Nora sent me. That day's incident caused quite a stir. Grace left in tears. Lucas was beaten by his father and sent directly to the hospital. Amelia, I didn't know you had a past with Lucas. I kept bringing up Grace. You must have been very sad back then. On the other end of the line, Nora apologized to me. I shook my head. It was all in the past. To this day, I also understand Lucas had never placed me on an equal footing. Perhaps he had some feelings for me, but it was only a few. He could join forces with Grace for family interests and use methods to force me to yield for his own desires. He had lifted me to this point and he had the ability to take it all back. My real estate had been mysteriously frozen, and more than half of my stocks and funds had evaporated. Looking back at that text message from midnight, come back to me and all of this will still belong to you. His coercion and temptation had once been one of our strategies in business. Now he used it against me, the person who once fought side by side with him. I smiled lightly, took out my SIM card, and threw it into the trash. Walking against the light, I headed towards my next stop in the hospital. Lucas was wrapped in bandages. His assistant stood nervously beside him, bending down to report. Ever since the boss publicly acknowledged his relationship with President Amelia at his engagement party, he had changed from his usual calm demeanor to one of volatile temper. The executive office was also in agony, almost spending the whole day liaising with foreign contacts, monitoring everything Amelia was doing abroad, and reporting every detail. President Amelia, she's gone missing. An avalanche buried her underground. Lucas's heart trembled violently, his pupils almost unfocused. Before the assistant finished speaking, a cup grazed his forehead and shattered on the floor. Shut up. Get out. Lucas went mad, disregarding his still unhealed broken ribs, supporting himself on crutches to check on the situation. The response was still that the person was missing. The news was just reporting that a small town in Western Europe had experienced an avalanche due to extreme weather, with tourists buried and rescue efforts underway. She'll be fine. Lucas shook his head, reassuring himself. She's the cleverest. She must be hiding somewhere. Ignoring the objections, Lucas immediately ordered the preparation of a private jet. He wanted to reach Northern Europe as quickly as possible and bring her back. However, just as he was about to leave the hospital, he was carried back to his ward to prevent his injuries from worsening. Lucas's wife had no choice but to order someone to tie him to the bed and inject him with sedatives. She had never seen her son in such a crazy, irrational state. Lucas had once brought that girl home, but she had a troubled past with too many burdens and not enough purity. Having lived more than half her life, Lou's mother had seen the schemes of such women around her husband. She simply didn't want her son to go through this again. Mom, please let me go find her. The emaciated Lucas on the hospital bed pleaded. She softened and agreed to her son's request, promising to bring Amelia back as long as he took care of his injuries. The Lucas family used all their connections, but it was still futile. They only found a diary and a pregnancy report. The report indicated that Amelia was already over 3 months pregnant. Lucas's eyes turned red as he trembled. In the diary, Lucas once said that lovers who have seen the aurora will meet again in their next life. Unfortunately, we've never seen it and have gotten lost. I brought the baby to see it. The aurora is beautiful. If you were here, you would surely be amazed by the wonders of nature. Yeah, I'm pregnant. Even though you took precautions, this life has still come sneakily. Isn't this a sign that our bond hasn't truly ended? Want to go back to my country to find you and tell you about the baby's existence. I clearly grew up as a victim in this environment, yet at this moment I am wickedly thinking of using the child to keep you. The news is reporting your marriage to Grace, and I cancelled my return ticket. I want to share with you everything fresh and new I see on my journey, even a plain cloud. In the past, I wouldn't have dared to think this way. I knew our differences, so I didn't dare to rest for a moment, mustering the courage to stand by your side. The heavy snow is swallowing us. The baby and I might never go back. It's fate, and the child in my womb has always been unexpected. Lucas, lying on the hospital bed, was already in tears. The date was stuck on February 20th, exactly their 10th anniversary together. The last line of the diary read, Lucas, wishing you happiness in your new marriage and an early arrival of a precious child. Lucas seemed like a different person, staring blankly out the window. These days, Lucas reflected on the little moments he had with Amelia. They had spent 10 years together. 10 years of day and night entwined in supporting one another. He had long been trapped, unable to escape. Not just a physical connection but a spiritual one as well. It was only after spending a few days with Grace that he realized what he wanted wasn't a gentle little woman who revolved around him, but rather someone whose mere glance could make him push through countless obstacles, advancing in sync with him. Yet he had lost her, and with her their child. What was he doing then? Oh, he was busy getting engaged to someone else. At this thought, Lucas's heart felt like it was going to explode. An uncontrollable wail pierced his chest, bringing him to the brink of death. Lucas lay on the bed, surviving on nutrient solutions. Ethan visited him a few times, and upon seeing him refusing to eat, couldn't help but scold him. What were you doing earlier? Now that she's gone, what's with this act? Hearing this, Lucas struggled to get up, but due to his weakness, he could only lift his neck to retort. She's not dead, she's perfectly fine, both her and the baby. If it weren't for Lucas's pitiful appearance, Ethan would have wanted to beat him up. Then go find her. Damn it, who are you trying to fool with this dead act? At those words, Lucas seemed energized, calling for food to be brought in and shoving it into his mouth without restraint. His stomach had already been tormented, and he could only kneel on the ground and vomit violently. When Grace saw Lucas improving, she came to visit him. I felt uncomfortable about Amelia since the woman was already dead. Arguing with a corpse felt demeaning. Moreover, in elite families, spouses often play their own games, which were countless. Lucas was handsome and came from a wealthy family, and I had indeed developed feelings for him. Thinking positively, love could blossom over time. Thinking negatively, I had seen enough of elite family tactics since childhood to handle it to some extent. As long as there was a child, I wouldn't have to worry in the future. However, just as I entered, Lucas tightly grabbed me by the neck. If it weren't for you, she wouldn't have gone abroad with the baby. How dare you show up in front of me? It's you who harmed her. His grip tightened and I couldn't even cry out for help. Lucas had gone mad, completely insane. If Lucas's wife hadn't arrived in time, the consequences would have been unthinkable. Lucas's father was furious and ordered that he be sent for close treatment. While Lucas was recovering, he secretly sought opportunities to escape. Finally, one day, taking advantage of the medical staff being lax during the shift change, Lucas sneaked out and rushed towards his former lover without hesitation. He searched for her in the snow-covered mountains year after year. 3 years later, I was vacationing on a small island in the southern hemisphere. Beside me, my little one waved his chubby hand. "Buy me an ice cream, please." The young man applying sunscreen on me chuckled. "Call me Dad, and I'll buy it for you." "Daddy, daddy, daddy. Don't spoil him, he'll end up with cavities." Before I could finish my sentence, the big and small ones had already scampered off. I put on my sunglasses and continued sunbathing. Suddenly, I felt my back tighten, and the pressure from the palm increased significantly. I frowned in dissatisfaction. Ouch! Be gentler. The breath behind me seemed to have become heavier, but I didn't pay attention. Just as the warm palm pressed down on the dimple 3 inches below my lower back, it suddenly applied force. Unable to contain myself, I let out a sound. Fortunately, there weren't many people around, so it wasn't mortifying. I turned angrily, meeting Lucas's face, which was holding back rage. He looked thin, with dark circles under his eyes, seemingly having not rested properly for a long time. "Do you know how long I've been looking for you?" Lucas choked up. "I thought you really... What, are you unhappy that I'm still alive?" I calmed my emotions. Lucas stared at me with red eyes, his voice trembling with suppressed grievance. "I thought if I couldn't find you in this world, I'd go to hell to find you. If it weren't for someone saying they saw you here, you would have never seen me again. And then, what are you, a golden nugget?" I stood up expressionlessly to leave, but Lucas tightly gripped my wrist and pulled me into his arms. "I've searched for you for 3 years, for a full 3 years. I could only hold on to the notebook you left behind to endure the long cold nights for you. I've given up everything. Even if I know you lied to me, I still have this despicable softness in my heart that I only wish we could go back to the past. Isn't my sincerity enough? Are you belittling my feelings for you like this?" Lucas's eyes were red as he shouted in despair. "Amelia, do you even have a heart? While I was struggling with Lucas, Ava returned at some point, jabbing 2 ice cream cones onto Lucas's knee, sticky cream blending into the fabric of his suit. "You big bad guy. Let go." Lucas looked down at Ava, who bore some resemblance to him, and a hint of tenderness flickered in his eyes. "Mine." Before I could respond, Ava called out into the distance, "Daddy, come quick. There's a bad guy." Lucas's expression darkened as he gritted his teeth and spat out a few words. "You let my son call someone else daddy." When Liam rushed back, he punched Lucas. Blood seeped from the corner of Lucas's mouth. He wiped it away and stopped his bodyguards, who were itching for a fight behind him. "Amelia, come back with me, otherwise I'll kill this pretty boy." Liam, young and impulsive, shouted back, "You old fool! How dare you threaten me?" Liam's family's bodyguards gathered around when their young master spoke up. His family had that kind of power, but I didn't dare get too involved. "Our child is already gone." I didn't say any more, just turned to leave, pulling Ava with me. Lucas and his bodyguard surged forward but were blocked by Liam's guards. "Don't leave. You said you loved me. That diary, I don't believe it was all fake." The desperate screams behind us echoed in my ears. 3 years ago, I was under constant surveillance. Every step was obstructed. I had no choice but to use my connections to seal off my information, and I sent Lucas a big gift. I wanted him to remember me at all times, to remember how desperately he lost me and our child while he was happily with someone new, to amplify his guilt infinitely so that every day after, when he touched happiness, the guilt would follow him for life. The diary contained half-truths and half-lies. Ava's mother was my partner, and I had taken Ava as my godson. Lucas was still not giving up. He secretly took a hair sample from Ava to have it tested. The results left him despondent for a long time. He had to accept that our child was gone. On the day he got engaged to Grace, the child went to another family, a family filled with love from both parents. Lucas didn't return to his home country. He found my address. Compared to 3 years ago, when it felt like searching for a needle in a haystack, I wasn't surprised that he could find it now. I had long since let go. After all, it had been 3 years, and there was no need to hide from him. "Amelia, give me a chance to make it up to you, okay?" Lucas blocked my way. The Lucas I knew had always been proud and lofty. At this moment he bent down, pleading with me. I paused, looking at this man who once accompanied me, my expression cold. If anything could be made up for, what would the desperate and hopeless me from 3 years ago be? "Lucas, we're all adults. Let's keep some dignity." I hesitated, recalling the words he once said to me. "Let's part on good terms." Lucas wanted to step forward, but my assistant Lily blocked him. "Sir, please have some self-respect," Lily said gently, but her tone carried an authoritative air. "If you continue to pester, we will take legal action to have you sent back." Lily opened the back door, raised her hand to protect my head, and helped me into the car. Lucas gritted his teeth, glaring at Lily's overly familiar actions. "Who are you?" After closing the car door, Lily calmly handed her business card to Lucas. "I am Amelia's private assistant, Lily. If you have any matters, please make an appointment with Amelia through me." As the car moved smoothly forward, I glanced back. Lucas was clenching his fists, staring fiercely in the direction we were leaving. I couldn't help but laugh, teasing Lily, who was sitting in the passenger seat. "Lily, I didn't expect you to have such good skills at making people angry, considering how honest you usually are." Lily's expression was neutral. "This is my job." "TSK, how boring." I lowered my head to handle documents in a corner where I couldn't see. Lily stared at the figure in the rearview mirror, clenching her fists. Because of Lily's actions, I seldom encountered Lucas again. I confirmed her workability and gave her a 2% increase in her year-end bonus. Lily remained expressionless, placing a cup of brown sugar water and a warm baby on my desk. I slapped my forehead. No wonder I had been so irritable these past few days. It turned out my period had arrived. I slumped onto the sofa, and Lily set the meal box in front of me. "Why isn't this from the usual place I eat?" Lily took out chopsticks and a spoon from the food bag and said nonchalantly, "This is chicken soup I made. Don't eat takeout for the next few days." I pouted. It would be rude to refuse soup made by someone's own hands, But I was on a diet. Just when I was caught in a dilemma, Lily had already served a bowl of soup and gently said, "I skimmed the oil from the soup. It won't make you gain weight." I couldn't help but sigh. Whoever marries you in the future should celebrate with firecrackers for 3 days and 3 nights. Lily looked down at me drinking the soup, her expression briefly flashing with an emotion I didn't understand. Her lips parted as if she was about to speak, but 2 childish voices interrupted. "Godmother! Godmother! Amelia! I came to see you with my godson." Ava and Liam flew over, and Lily steadied them in front of me. "Godmother, will you go to the amusement park with me?" Ava hugged my leg. I pressed my hand against my slightly aching belly, forcing a smile. "How about another day? Godmother isn't feeling well today." Seeing this, Ava's round eyes rolled around happily as she shouted, "I have a sister now, right?" The chubby face rubbed against my belly. "Godmother, you finally agreed for Godfather to give me a little sister." I shot a glare at Liam, who was huddled to the side, poking his fingers and pretending to be a quail. Lily stood up, grabbing Ava by the collar and pulling her out. "I've prepared some summer homework for you." When they returned, I had just finished scolding Liam for messing around with Ava. Seeing that Liam wanted to drink chicken soup, Lily quickly walked over and snatched the soup away. "What do you mean?" Liam frowned in dissatisfaction. Lily's face was cold, and the corners of her mouth twitched slightly. "This soup will give you a tail." Damn. The next time I saw Lucas was in my company's conference room as a client. I do not accept handouts, but I do not refuse what I've worked for. Lucas had changed from the past. He was businesslike and made no mistakes. However, Liam became increasingly unreasonable, squatting in my office every day. Wherever I went he followed, but I was helpless. He had some distant relation to my partner, mixed Chinese and English descent. He was the youngest son in the family, the little master spoiled by all. After countless interruptions during my project meetings with Lucas, I lost my temper. Liam paused for a moment, his European-style peach blossom eyes instantly filling with grievance. "I won't do it again." From then on, Liam calmed down for a while. He stopped wearing his leather jacket and switched to a suit. His long hair, styled with gel, somehow gave him a more composed air. Dressed up, he looked quite the part. Liam slammed the contract onto the table, retorting, "I'm not a child. I've grown up." I don't know what stimulated him, but he went home to inherit a company and came to discuss cooperation with me. When it came to work, he was tired and hungry, nearly dozing off. Whenever it involved anything to do with Lucas, he would immediately become vigilant, like a little dog guarding its food, squinting his eyes and showing no concealment of his malice. Although I felt uneasy, I regarded it as him throwing a tantrum until the celebration banquet for the project's successful landing. Lucas raised his glass and lightly clinked it with mine, his gaze deep. "Amelia, we're still as in sync as before. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to describe us as a match made in heaven." Before he finished speaking, the lights suddenly dimmed, and a soft romantic concerto began to play. When the lights came back on, Liam walked toward me holding Ecuadorian roses. He knelt on one knee in front of me, presenting a diamond ring. "Amelia, will you marry me?" I quickly pulled him up and lowered my voice. "Are you crazy? I'm 11 years older than you." Liam clasped my hand in response, sounding aggrieved. "Are you complaining that I'm younger? I've grown up. I can also be mature and steady." I sighed and gently pushed his hand away. "You don't need to change for anyone. I just see you as a little brother." Liam's eyes dimmed for a moment, then hope flickered again. "Then you should try to see me as a lover." As I pondered how to respond to make him give up, Lily took off her coat, draped it over my shoulders and led me off the stage. When we returned to the villa, I sighed in relief. Ava brought me a bowl of calming tea, standing behind me and gently massaging my temples with her fingertips. "Thank you," I said. "It's my job." My partner called me and I pursed my lips and answered, "Well, stop teasing me. I'm going crazy." Liam, half Chinese and half English, 187 centimeters tall with a net worth of hundreds of millions. How could he not be good enough for you? I'm 11 years older than him. He's just a little kid on the other end. Liam's voice was unable to contain his feelings. "I'm not a kid, Amelia. I really like you very much. Before Liam could say anything else, Ava's mother interrupted. He's 19. It's different here than in our country. He can get a marriage certificate. If you're worried about his family, don't be. They are very open-minded and let Liam do as he wishes. Even if you act like a heartbreaker, his family can still support him. I'm not being forced to say this, it's the truth. At 30, it's the age to explore. I firmly refused Liam. He still wouldn't give up, lingering in my company under the guise of work, secretly competing with Lucas. I had no choice but to try to avoid both of them and let Lily handle the communications. Lily always arranged everything well, and I had a period of comfortable days. However, such good days quickly came to an end. Lucas had a few drinks and caused a scene at my doorstep. Amelia, what do I have to do to get your forgiveness? I'll give you everything, all of it. Come home with me, okay? Liam was also causing trouble nearby with his dirty stuff. Nobody wants his. Amia, don't take his, take mine. Mine is clean. I pinched the bridge of my nose and peeled off the mask I had just put on. I resisted the impulse to give each of them a good slap and called Liam's family to have them pick up their drunk son. The arguments outside continued unabated. Lucas did not see Liam as a rival. Instead, he was somewhat wary of Lily. He firmly believed that Amelia did not like that loud, brash little boy. In terms of both character and ability, he was much more composed than Liam, the spoiled young master who relied on his parents. Lucas snorted coldly, provoking Liam, who instantly became irritable. An old and worn-out person like you, and you still have the nerve to scoff? Lucas was hit in a sore spot, and the anger surged with the influence of alcohol. I dated Amelia for 10 years and even had a child with her. After he spoke, Lucas paused for a moment. His competitiveness seemed to dwindle to a mere sliver, now tending toward giving up entirely. Well, that just shows you couldn't keep her heart. It's clear how useless you are. Liam retorted without hesitation, pushing Lucas outside until the dazed man fell to the ground. When I opened the door, Liam's family had just arrived to take their young master away. I had never seen Lucas with such a desolate expression. He slumped on the ground looking at me with eyes full of despair. Amelia, do you know that for the past 3 years of searching for you I often dreamed? I dreamed that child was crying pitifully, waving his hand and asking me why I didn't want him. It felt as if my heart had been gouged out. I'm sorry, Amelia. I truly apologize to you both. Lucas covered his face with one hand, seeking to protect the last remnants of his dignity, but tears slipped through his fingers. I sighed. You should go back. Don't come looking for me anymore. We can't go back. Recalling his once spirited demeanor, I noticed that after 3 years of mental torment, a few strands of silver had appeared in his glossy black hair. I felt increasingly unsettled. Let this complicated fate end cleanly. Lucas knelt on both knees, grasping the hem of my clothes. Please give me another chance. I've only ever fallen for you in this life. Have pity on me. Can you forgive me? I didn't turn around. Silence was my answer. Once was enough for falling in the same place. The past cannot be revisited, but the future can still be pursued. Under the streetlight, Lucas could no longer suppress the overwhelming emotions. Clutching his shirt at his heart, he curled up in a corner, emitting pitiful cries. He could only watch helplessly as his lover gradually departed. Amelia turned her back on him, never looking back. Once he thought that parting life and death was the most painful. It was the encounters that were within reach yet felt so distant that were the most tormenting and unbearable. The person who left had once been the treasure he discovered in his youth, but now that treasure no longer belonged to him. It had completely abandoned him in the corner where he was absent. The treasure still radiated its enchanting brilliance. He had to admit, without him, Amelia was still doing well. He had never been the only one in this entanglement, only he remained stationary forever and ever he stayed in that spot.